Hello, I'm Dr. Debbie, and this is Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio. We offer gentle, evidence-informed, soul-rooted practices for adults, children, and families, supporting whole person healing, health, and wellness with a special focus on nervous system regulation, emotional wellness, identity and self-connection, healing in everyday life, and balance that actually works in the real world. Our work is guided by the power of three: energy medicine, Ayurveda-inspired living, and herbal wisdom. We strive to help heal the whole person, a truly comprehensive, integrated approach. This work continue in a sustainable and accessible way. We have created Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio on Patreon. Patreon allows this work to exist without overwhelm, without high financial barriers, and without asking people to do more than they are able. There is a space for you here at whatever level feels right. Healing happens here. Wholeness lives within you. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Debbie with Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio. It is Friday, and what a full week we have had. Welcome, welcome. I want to express my gratitude for you coming here tonight. Welcome back to the Healing Circle as we arrive together tonight. Let's take a moment to remember what we have been exploring this week, not as information, but as a lived experience in the body. Remember, on Monday, we explored how many of us learned to leave our bodies in order to survive, how disconnection wasn't a failure, but a wise response to overwhelm. Then on Tuesday, we explored how monitoring ourselves and others often replaces presence, how staying alert became a way to stay safe. Then on Wednesday, we explored what it means to live inside the body again, not fixing it, not managing it, but inhabiting it. On Thursday, we explored how staying with sensation without explaining or justifying it begins to restore safety at the most basic level. And tonight, we take the next natural step. As we begin returning to the body, a deeper pattern often comes into view. What happens when safety itself becomes linked to obedience? Tonight is not about judging obedience or devotion. It's about understanding what the body learned in order to feel safe, and how safety can gently be reconnected to choice, trust, and presence. There is nothing you need to do here. There's nothing you need to agree with. Just notice what it is like to be here. And I want to begin tonight with a simple question. One we're not trying to answer quickly, just stay curious with. What happens when safety itself becomes linked to obedience? And tonight's Healing Circle, I have a special guest. I am working with Heartful Muslimah. This conversation includes an Islamic reflection, but it's open to everyone because, my friends, the nervous system, survival strategies, and the longing for safety is a human experience. This is not about judging obedience. It's not about devotion being wrong. It's about understanding what the body learned in order to feel safe, and how safety can gently be reconnected to choice, trust, and presence. Now, before I go any further, I want to welcome my sister from Heartful Muslimah. This is not a debate tonight. It's not a lecture. It is really just a shared reflection. We're bringing together nervous system wisdom and faith as it's lived inside the body. I invited her not to tell us what to do, but to explore with us what devotion feels like when it's rooted in love instead of fear. Heartful Muslimah, welcome. I'm so grateful that you are here. Assalamu alaikum. That's our greeting in Islam. It means peace and blessings upon you. Would you please take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Debbie, for that wonderful introduction. So, my name is Maria Khan, and I founded the Heartful Muslimah last year because I saw just how many women were struggling with this, struggling to feel safe in their faith, having to deal with so many feelings of guilt, of pressure, and connecting their identity to how much they can perform or achieve, and just this rat race that really never ends. And we're put in this society, we're placed, especially today, in
Mhm.
this atmosphere of productivity and measuring our worth depending upon how much we can do, not in who we are. And I think that's where safety really begins. So back to my story, I mean, I started studying Islam and religion at the age of 17. So I was in college at the time, and I just knew that there was more to life than simply academics. I was in the top private college in Montreal in Canada at the time, and I just knew that there's more than this to life. And I saw people struggling with depression and anxiety, and having this pressure from their parents to perform, and don't let the family down. And and I said there must be more to life than just this. So that's when I started studying the Quran in detail. Like, I started taking this tafsir class. So tafsir means the commentary, explanations, and context of the courses. And that's really where my journey began, especially my journey to spirituality. Then at the age of 18, I moved out of the country and I started traveling the world. I went to 17 countries. I started studying online full time. I studied all the Islamic sciences, jurisprudence, hadith. Those are like authentic narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I studied his life. I studied the stories of the companions, how they lived, and I spent time with people who were extremely spiritual at the time, and I was extremely inspired as a young girl. So yeah, that was pretty much my life. I ended up later doing forest school education. So I became a nature school instructor, which I loved because they're very closely linked, which is why he spent a lot of time there, right? So I'm a mom of two boys. I homeschooled them until 7 and 8 years old. They're living in Florida. But yeah, just homeschooling them. I let them lead their education. I didn't believe in this thing of tell your kids what to do, control them, manage them, decide who they're gonna be, right? I let them decide who they wanted to be. I gave them autonomy even in their education, where I said, what do you want to learn, where do you want to go today, right? No matter what the topic was. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and that's a bit on my background. And yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And once again, welcome. So I want to start off softly tonight, and I want to ask you a question, Maria. When you think about obedience and devotion, what do you notice in the body when it's rooted in fear, and what shifts when it's rooted in love or trust?
Yeah, beautiful question. I'm coaching women now, actually, some women who are struggling in their spirituality, struggling in their sense of self-worth, struggling with people pleasing, and I help them develop healthier relationships, not only to other people, but healthier relationships to God. And what I've seen, especially in my clients who struggle with obedience or with prayer, or with devotion in general, oftentimes what they do is they directly associate their sense of self-worth to how much they can perform, and it brings about this anxiety in their bodies. I've worked with Muslim women who struggle to pray, right? Like, they're like, I love God, I believe in God, but I just can't bring myself to pray. And I said, well, what do you believe about prayer? What do you believe about God? Right? And what they said is like they felt this pressure because they felt like they had to earn God's love, right? When God loves us unconditionally, He created us beautifully in our essence. He created our souls and we have this divine essence that He blew into us. Feel we have to earn love, like we have to earn our place in paradise, and that God's love is not just right that Allah in God in Arabic, and one of his in the Islamic tradition is Al Wadud, which means the most loving one, right? Allah loves us, and just feeling that love and believing that we are worthy of His love just for being ourselves, is so important. And that's how we shift from fear to love and trust. It's really knowing and trusting that God created us and that He created us because He loves us, and again, this comes from childhood a lot of the times where we felt we had to earn our caregiver's love. So then what happens is we take that relational pattern and we try to project it onto God, right? But that is, it's a mistake that we make. I mean, but once you're aware of it, that's the first step to healing it.
Thank you so much. And I just want to just deviate for a moment. Um, Sister, you are currently out of the country, and every once in a while, your internet speed or something must slow down or glitch, because once in a while, to all of those who are watching us, when her voice it kind of gets a little sketchy, or it gets a little robotic, or you might not be able to understand a word here and there. So if that's happening, please forgive us. We're doing the best that we can with the technology, but she is not in the country at this time. So far, it hasn't been really bad, and so far it's a word here and there, and you can still get the complete meaning from what you're saying. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, Maria. So
Thank you.
just in case, and to the audience, bear with us. This is the first time we're doing this, so just bear with us. So now back to our topic. You made such excellent points, regarding fear and how people see God and think that, His love is conditioned upon certain things, etc. And, I'm reminded, because I was not always Muslim, and at one point in my life, I was very involved in the church. And then, being an American, there's parts of our country where evangelical Christians, which are very, fire and brimstone kind of thing, going on, where it's present, religion oftentimes is presented in a way that creates fear. And then I lived in the Arab world. Now, this was after I reverted to Islam. I lived in the Arab world for several years, and I've been back and forth between the Arab world and here many times. I know the culture, particularly the Egyptian culture, very, very well. And there's kind of like the same idea that, children are raised, or people are taught to believe, not in all, whether we're talking about evangelical Christian, or we're talking about Islam in the Arab world, or whatever. Of course, I don't mean all people, but there's a strong presence of teaching religion through fear of God, so that you do the right things. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Christianity, or you're talking about Islam, or you're talking about the West or overseas, when religion is posed from a position of fear, it's not very successful. It's not very successfully implemented, oftentimes, for many, many people in their daily lives. And, a lot of things are hidden. A lot of things are not practiced. People give up. So there's a lot to this. Thank you for making those wonderful points. So let's turn this a little bit I want to talk a little bit about the nervous system and how the nervous system can learn obedience as safety. And one thing that we talk about a lot at Evolve Global 22 is that when safety feels uncertain emotionally, physically, or even spiritually, the nervous system looks for patterns, patterns that reduce threat. So if at some point obedience or compliance reduced conflict, prevented punishment, or preserved connection, the body, my friends, remembers. Now, as a belief, as a bodily, it doesn't remember it as a belief, it remembers it as a bodily memory. And that's why obedience can actually feel calming at first, because threat responses turn down, they go down. But over time, tension can build, resentment builds, or the body can collapse. When obedience reduces danger, the body learns to repeat it. And in repeating it in this way and thinking this way, the tension continues to build. And of course, there are outcomes that we don't desire. So I want to just pause for a minute, because this this doesn't live in theory; it lives in our daily life. So, where do you see obedience becoming linked to safety, especially for women navigating faith, family, and belonging, Maria?
Yeah, I think this starts when we are young. A lot of the patterns that we have, a lot of the beliefs that we have, a lot of our neurological and nervous system wiring starts from a very tender age, right? And from early life experiences. And so what happens is when we are not given the privilege of being authentic, and this could look like being punished for expressing ourselves as children, right? Being punished, or having our parents disappointed in us if we are expressing our needs or concerns, right? Saying, oh, I know better, like, shut your mouth, this is what we're doing, whether you like it or not. This is when we learn to shrink ourselves, right? We learn that I'm not safe when I speak up. I'm only safe when I listen and obey, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is really where it starts. It could be with our caregivers growing up. It could be in a relationship that we had early on in our lives, right? For those of us who had a romantic relationship, maybe in our teens, and that's how we were treated, right? We learned that being myself is not okay, that I must conform to whatever is told to me.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm going to be shamed, punished, put down, maybe even excommunicated, right? I've seen women be excommunicated from their communities for being themselves and for even just asking questions about the status quo. Why do we do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we pray? um why are we doing these things? And then they're shunned and put down and shamed for just asking questions, and just this natural curiosity that we all have. And it's really sad, because then we start to lose our identity without realizing it, and then wonder why we're struggling with anxiety and depression later on in life.
Very, very, very important points. Just an add on here. How do you think that manifests into relationships, spousal relationships, for example? Because as women, I mean, and men, I suppose, uh, I mean, there's a certain progression to life, right? Most of us want to grow up and we want to get married and live happily ever after. Now, I'm being a little
Yeah,
facetious
exactly.
here, but what does this do to relationships, especially when you're talking about, marital relationships, spousal relationships? Um, any insight to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so what happens, I mean, it's sad. It's really sad, actually, because what happens is we are prevented from building intimate connections, because when you are hiding your authenticity, when you are hiding who you truly are and what you truly believe inside, you cannot create a meaningful connection with another human being. I've seen people, they're living with somebody for 10 plus years, and they never showed them who they truly are. They were just, posture, 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 acting, performing, doing what they thought that their partner wanted them to do, right? I was in this type of marriage as well. I got married at 18 years old and I was just trying to make him happy. I lost who I was just trying to be whatever he wanted me to be. And I was never able to actually connect with him on a deep level. I think that just this past year with my partner now is the first time ever that I was able to be vulnerable in a relationship. And it's only because I nipped these people pleasing habits in the bud. I said, I'm not living like this anymore. I don't care. Like me or hate me, this is who I am. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to apologize for it anymore.
Thank you. Thank you. Something that comes to mind is when being good can activate what is known as fawn or freeze. And something else we see a lot in the body are two nervous system responses that often get misunderstood: fawn and freeze. The first one, fawn, if I please, if I stay agreeable, if I disappear emotionally, I'll be safe. And the other is freeze. If I don't choose, if I don't move, maybe nothing bad will happen. These aren't personality traits, they're intelligent survival responses. Now, fawn can feel like a tight chest, shallow breathing, a busy mind. Freeze can feel heavy, foggy, or low energy. What's happening here, my friends, is your nervous system learned that being good your nervous system learned that as protection. So, Maria, based upon what you just said previously and what I just highlighted here about fawn and freeze, how do you see being good slowly turning into pressure or fear in faith-centered lives? Because I really do believe, I've come to believe based upon my experience, observations, and all the sorts of things that I've come across throughout my many years of being alive. I think that in some religious um, circles, this is a huge challenge. And I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's extremely dangerous to put these types of identities on ourselves and even others, and even our children, especially being like, oh, you're a good boy, or oh, you're a good girl, right? Because what does that even mean? Oftentimes, what that identity comes with, what it actually means, is that you listen to what you're told, right? That, oh, you do as I
Yeah.
say. That's what makes you good. And so I like, personally with my children, I never used that. I never said, "Oh, you're such a good boy," ever, ever. I'm like, "Because you are you, and that is enough. You're not a good boy, you are yourself. And I love you because you're you. You don't have to listen to everything I say. You can question me. You can question God. Like, my kids questioned God all the time, saying, like, how do we know he exists? We can't see him, right? And I let them. I embraced those questions. In fact, like, they got rewarded for asking questions like that because I said, I want you to be a critical thinker. I don't want you to follow like a sheep. I said, you are a human being and you have been given your intellect for a reason. And Allah, God in the Quran asks us so many times, reflect, ask questions, right? Be curious, be yourself, and that is wired because when we are again, back to the question, right? How can being good turn into pressure? Well, yeah, because we have to act the part, right? And
Mhm.
anytime that you're
Yeah,
acting anything, you're not being yourself. Yeah. And so, how can you create a meaningful relationship with God when you are not even?
absolutely, absolutely. And really what this boils down to is fear-based obedience disconnects us from choice. Because we're disconnected from our creator, we're disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from the universe, like we're just completely disconnected as a result of this way of thinking, right? So when obedience is rooted in fear, something subtle happens inside. Desires start to feel unsafe, intuition feels suspicious, Choice feels dangerous. So when someone asks, what do you want? The body might tighten or freeze or defer. The loss of agency often shows up as anxiety, collapse, or chronic self-doubt. It's not surprising that if you lose your identity, you lose who you are, or you don't know who you are, that this happens. And so many people are struggling with this, no matter what faith they may be, no matter if they're not of any faith. Because of this, the obedience and in coming at it from the perspective that you have to be a performer and etc. So yeah, fear-based obedience trades choice for safety. So another question, another thought here, Maria. What do you notice makes choosing feel so scary for people, especially in spiritual spaces?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of self-trust. So, in order to go against what you're being told, you need to have a level of self-trust. You have to believe your own judgment. So, again, when we are wired to believe that, this person or my parent or my spouse knows better than me, or their judgment is better than mine, then we learn really quickly to ignore that little voice inside our head that's telling us what we have to do. We learn to self erase, we learn to self abandon because we're like, no, 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 they know better than me. And again, this is a travesty because we are disconnected from ourselves more than ever before, especially when we live like this. And it's sad when this is in spiritual spaces because spirituality means connecting with God, connecting with the Creator. But again, we can't do this when we can't even make a choice for ourselves, right? Because connecting with God is a choice. We need a sense of agency, and guilt and shame are huge obstacles in spirituality. People think that if they have shame that they have humility, but shame and humility are fundamentally different, right? Shame is when you're beating yourself up, beating yourself down for making mistakes, and humility is when you're like, God, I surrender this to you. This is too much for me. I can't heal myself. I need you. I need your divine help, right? Like surrendering to Allah, to God. That
Mm-hmm.
is humility. And that is what we want to do, rather than feeling the guilt and the shame of, oh my gosh, what if I make a mistake, right? Because we're surrendering that the outcome is in God's hands, not ours. And that is when you can feel finally liberated from this heavy pressure.
Absolutely. And really, what I took from that, and please expand if I don't do this justice, but safety can be reconnected to trust, not control. So from Evolve Global 22's perspective and lens, we see safety rebuilt through very small things: presence, choice, permission to heal, to feel. Um, how and from a Heartful Muslimah lens, I would say, what would you add to that from your lens when you talk about safety can be or when you think about safety can be reconnected to trust, not control? What does it look like from your lens?
Yeah, I think it comes with time when you get to know yourself and you spend some time alone. I think that for people who are chronic people pleasers and who lived in toxic environments, being alone can be the greatest medicine because that is how you learn to feel safe making your own choices, because you have to make your own choices. Nobody's telling you what to do. Nobody's around you. And so I think this is a pivotal experience that all of us must go through so that we can know ourselves. I just met a woman last year and she said, I never knew who I was until I lived alone, because she had spent her whole life people pleasing, just doing what everybody else wanted of her. She was from Africa and she grew up in a way where it's like, you do this or else. And so she never learned what things she liked, what she wanted in life, who she was, what were her values, what did she see in her own future, not what her parents wanted her to do. And and that's where we can slowly rebuild this safety, right? Through trusting ourselves with small things, through having permission to feel the feels without shame, without gaslighting our experiences.
Sure. And then what is devotion rooted in that doesn't require fear or performance from an Islamic perspective?
Yeah, it's really from love of God. And I think that loving yourself loving yourself is a manifestation of your love of God, because you are a creation of God. So just like we love nature, we love animals, we love God's creation, we are also part of God's creation. And so I think I've seen a lot of people struggle with self love. They think that it's something that is not spiritual, but I would beg to differ. I would say it's extremely spiritual to love yourself.
Absolutely. And, I think I often wonder, because I actually, I agree with you 100%. And I have found myself in that place currently and under this belief as well. After, studying and learning a lot about Islam that I did really on my own, not through someone else. And then my work, of course, that I do with, my practitioner work and working with people. But, I wonder what kind of resistance do people, and we're talking about, the Islamic world now, the Islamic community, but this also is the same. I can tell you it's very similar in the Christian world. What kind of resistance do you think people meet when they finally realize what you just said? Loving yourself is loving God. What do you think? Because that changes you fundamentally from the core once you really believe that, and live that. How do you think, or what have you experienced regarding resistance that a person who finally reached this pivotal point of realization and empowerment and growth and development and evolution in self that will meet in their circle of faith? We're talking about Islam right now, but it could be any faith when you're talking about the Creator and God.
Yeah, I think that when they fully embrace themselves, and when they stop feeling bad about loving themselves, that they're finally free. That's why I love the expression rooted and free, because when you are rooted in love, like, love is not just about loving others, it's about loving yourself too. It's about loving everybody, loving everything. Seeing your body and loving it, seeing your own soul and loving it, seeing your own personality, your own nature, your flaws, and loving it all. And that is really where serenity lives. It's in acceptance. Acceptance of others for who they are, and acceptance of the self.
Right, right. And thank you so much for that. Is there anything, uh, Maria, that you would like to add? Because we're coming to our close here. We could go on all night, but I know you have things to do, I have things to do, and our audience has things to do, I'm sure. But is there anything you would like to add?
I would say one last thing is just, to be aware when your body is telling you something. When you're feeling anxious, when you are feeling like shrinking yourself, when you're fawning, right? You're people pleasing, and when you're in freeze mode. So I've seen a lot of women fall the trap of shaming themselves being in freeze mode. Why can't I just get anything done? Why can't I do the dishes? Why is my house always messy? And I tell them that it's a message, right? It's the freeze state is a symptom of something much deeper, and it oftentimes roots from feelings of lack or feeling like you're not enough as you are, and so healing the beliefs that you have will heal your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we work on that every day here at Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio, hence the circle, right? So everybody, thank you for joining us. I want to remind you that if tonight resonated with you and you want to explore this more deeply, especially on how the body learns safety over time, Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio is on Patreon. Please go there and check it out. It's where we do deeper, slower work together, and we walk this path of healing together. And now I would like to leave all of our guests with a special blessing tonight. You are not broken for learning how to survive, and you are allowed to relearn safety, thought, trust, and presence. And Maria, would you like to leave our audience with a final special note for them to take with them tonight?
Sure, yeah. um just remember that you are loved more than you know, that you are always enough and you are never too much, and trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know you have a God-given intuition. You have an internal wisdom. So follow it, and remember that our Creator does not ask us to shrink or disappear, that He wants us and He created us uniquely so that we could be ourselves just as He made us. You don't have to change who you are. You are beautiful.
Thank you so much. And everybody, once again, thank you for being with us tonight. Remember, this is Evolve Global 22's Healing Light Studio. This is the circle that is free and available to all publicly on our YouTube channel. And remember, healing lives here. Wholeness lives within you. Peace, love, and light to all. I love each and every one of you. Thank you again to our guest. Bye-bye and stay safe.